What's up, everybody? Thanks again for stopping by for another edition of March 4th with Mike Bauman. I, of course, am your host, Mike Bauman. Whoever you are, wherever you are listening from, thank you so much for checking out the podcast. If you're a returning listener, I greatly appreciate your continued love and support. And if you're a brand new listener of the show, man, thank you so much for hopping aboard that pirate ship. You can follow me on Instagram at March 4th Pod. I am over there on YouTube at March 4th Pod. I'm also on TikTok at March 4th Podcast. Hey, you know what? If you made it here, then that means you found me somehow. And I truly appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to check out another edition of the March 4th with Mike Bauman podcast. How is everybody doing, man? I hope that life finds you well wherever you are listening to this episode as it's hitting your ears on Tuesday, April 1st. I hope that life is good for all of y'all. And if it's not, just hang tough, man. It gets better. Trust me. We all go through darkness to get to the light. So as we approach the end of the first chunk of 2025, keep your head up, keep trucking, keep moving forward. That's what this podcast is all about. March 4th, perseverance, moving forward. I've said it a few times already on previous episodes, but this is really my favorite time of the year with March Madness in full swing. By the time this episode comes out, we will know the Final Four for both the men's and women's basketball tournaments. Excuse me. And in addition to that, the NBA playoff picture is really taking shape, as is the NHL playoff picture. My beloved Detroit Pistons are having one heck of a season. First 40-win season since 2019, if my memory serves me right. JB Bickerstaff has done a great job with this young group. Cade Cunningham has really finally started to get the recognition that he deserves as the floor general that he is, man. And it's just a great group of young players. And really, the coaching changes for the Cavs and the Pistons really worked out. Detroit just beat the Cleveland Cavaliers this past weekend for the first time in 12 games. And for you basketball junkies out there, that's a big deal because the Cavs with Donovan Mitchell after that trade have really been ascending the past few seasons and have taken another leap this year, #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. So that was a big W. And ironically, the connection with this week's guest being from New York, Cade dropped a 40 burger, if I'm not mistaken, a few months back on the New York Knicks. And that was really like a big coming out party for him on a national stage to show people that he and the Pistons are for real, man. So your boy is really excited about this time of the year, man. And my Detroit Red Wings, man, they are, clinging to a potential wild card spot. I think they have the toughest schedule left, or one of the toughest schedules left in the NHL. But that would be awesome. They made the playoffs 25 straight years, and I think that streak ended back in 2016. So it's been some years now for Detroit working through a rebuild, but they got Stevie Y back a few years ago. They've made some good draft picks and brought in some guys through free agency. So I'm hoping that they can finish strong. They just beat the Boston Bruins at home the other night, so that was huge. So awesome time of the year, man. And also this year, also tie into this week's guest. This is the 40-year anniversary of Air Jordan 1. So there's all kinds of heat coming out this year. If you're a fan of shoes and a sneakerhead like me, man, there's a lot of budgeting you need to do because there's some heat coming out. There's some stuff that's already dropped, to start the year, and there's some more cool ones on deck, including the first pair of Jordans that I ever had, the Taxi Air Jordan 12s, are supposed to, at least right now, come out in like the holiday time of 2025 at the end of the year. So I'm not going to wish the rest of this year away, but I am manifesting holding a pair of those because I've not held a pair of those since 1997. There is a picture of myself and my sister, very 90s picture. I'm on my bike. She's got her arms crossed, and we're standing in the cul-de-sac outside my childhood home where I used to shoot all kinds of baskets and count down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like I was MJ, like everybody and their brother. I have my Michael Jordan jersey on, and I'm wearing those shoes. And the significance of that photo is that same day my mother made me throw them away. And that's not me taking shots at my mom, because I love you, Mom. She's my biggest supporter. But she just saw the shoes and they were literally falling apart. I used to spit shine them, and I wore the hell out of those things to the point where the outsole was pretty much gone in certain spots. You could actually see into the air cushioning of the shoe, or whether it was Zoom Air or whatever, like you could see into like the inner workings of the shoe. The outsole was wearing off. So unfortunately we had to retire those, but it's actually kind of cool because I have a picture from that day, man. Time flies, y'all. Enjoy it while you got it. But transition into this week's guest, man. He is New York based. He is not a New York Knicks fan, even though he's done awesome New York Knicks artwork. And he is a guy that is also a huge Michael Jordan fan, a fellow sneakerhead, and an amazing artist. He is none other than Adam Port. He is a New York based photorealist artist. I first got linked up with this guy through an awesome dude named Ken Lazaro. Ken came across my podcast last year. I think it was the episode that I did with my buddy Josh Bowserman of Royalty Cult, sick band. Check them out. And he had some really kind words for me. We exchanged some messages and some DMs via Instagram, and then we eventually had a phone conversation. And Ken is a really great guy, and I believe he's gotten work done for him from Adam. He's a client of Adam's and his amazing art. And he heard me geeking out about sneakers on one podcast, and he was like, "Dude, I'm going to try to link you up with Adam. You know, I think it'd be cool if you could get him on the show because he's done awesome work." And he's a great guy. And lo and behold, we were able to make it happen, and I really appreciate it because Adam's a busy cat. For those of you who didn't hear our first episode, which came out right about a year ago when I first had Adam on. Again, he is a New York-based photorealist artist, grew up in Long Island, big Michael Jordan fan, big sneakerhead, studied and owned his craft at Syracuse University School of Visual and Performing Arts. And one of the reasons I wanted to get him back on is because this year, 2025, marks 25 years that he was first discovered by a New York Knicks photographer at Madison Square Garden, which led to a prestigious licensing agreement that Adam had with the NBA, getting to go into the NBA archives of the photos. And that has really kicked off a long, awesome journey from Adam, who has worked with everybody from the Basketball Hall of Fame and the NBA, Elvis Presley Enterprises. He's done work for Jay-Z, Michael Jordan, Carmelo Anthony, Ray Lewis, Shaquille O'Neal. The list goes on, man. John Sally of the Bad Boy Pistons. Like, so many awesome pieces of art that he's done, and also has done some really awesome art of sneakers. You know, whether it's been Jordans or Kobe's. He did an awesome one of a Nike box. Like his art is really awesome, and his technique is awesome. And the first time we talked, it was more about Adam's journey as an artist, growing up in New York, growing up a Michael Jordan and a Bulls fan, and the inspiration that MJ provided him, like it provided me and so many millions around the world, into going to Syracuse and his journey from there as an artist. And we scratched the surface of some of the stories, like with Shaq and being part of the 2009 Hall of Fame induction class for the Basketball Hall of Fame, which was a star-studded class, man. Everybody from Michael Jordan, David Robinson, Jerry Sloan, John Stockton, C. Vivian Stringer, and Adam did art for the Basketball Hall of Fame featuring those Hall of Famers. Got to meet MJ, childhood dream. But this time around, I wanted to get him back for a part two because this guy's just got so many stories. He's done so many cool pieces of art over the years for so many people. I only named a handful of those names, as you guys heard in my little spiel here to start the beginning of this. And I was like, man, it'd be really cool to get him back on for part two, especially it's been 25 years since he was discovered at that New York Knicks game. And in addition to that, he had been posting on his Instagram an amazing piece that he did of Patrick Ewing for a client of his with New York or Nowhere on it, and it was incredible. And so that was something that really caught my attention. And I was like, between him posting about that and it being the 25-year anniversary since he was discovered, I thought it'd be a great time to get him back on and dig deeper into some other stories that he has, and as well as that terrific piece of art. So without further ado, I'm going to shut my big yapper and give you guys my conversation with Adam Port. Here it is. All righty, Adam, there we go, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to come back on the podcast. You're a busy guy. You got a lot going on, and we're both sneakerheads, we're both basketball junkies, and one of us is an amazing artist, and it's not me. So congratulations on everything that's going on, man, and I'm happy to get you back on for part two.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed our first conversation. So, round two, here we go.
Yeah, me too, brother. I mean, just the first place to start for everybody listening. The part one, we talked a lot about how you got to where you are in your journey today, and getting back on this one, like just keeping up with you on Instagram, man. The Patrick Ewing, New York or Nowhere, photo that you did, and you did two of them. So we'll get into it. I'll let you talk about it, but dude, the seeing the work that went into that, and we talked about your process as an artist, the first time as well. But I guess just as a place to start, man, like first of all, that was sick. Like I think that to me is like, I think encompasses like, and again, I don't even know you, but like to me, that encompasses like everything that you do and who you are as an artist. The fact that you grew up on Long Island, that font with the lettering, like the whole thing, it's like it's so sick, dude. So just as a place to start, man, like can you talk to me and the people about that project? Because I know it took like over 6 months of work and you actually did two simultaneously.
Yeah, that was a really I was telling my collector who commissioned that piece that it was the most challenging and most rewarding piece I ever worked on because like you mentioned I had to do two of them and the large piece was like almost 5 by 4 by 5 by 6 feet and the smaller one was like much smaller, 24 by 30, but I painted them at the same exact time. So I would go from one, work on it for however long, and then I'd go over to the next one and do and repeat it on a smaller or larger scale, depending on which one I went first. And because of that, as you mentioned, it took months and months to complete. And afterwards, it was so rewarding because it was so hard. Painting something once, especially an image like that, can be very painstaking. But to do it twice, it's like you have to just be so hyper focused and kind of compartmentalize a bit because if you step back too much and look at them both and realize, how much you have to do and again do it twice, it can be really overwhelming. So, but the image itself, it was, you know, I know we touched on it the first conversation, but I've gone through thousands and thousands of photographs, especially NBA photos over the years, and I've never seen that image. And when I saw that, I'm like, that's a perfect painting because it's just, you have Patrick Ewing, the greatest Nick possibly, and then you have Madison Square Garden in the background, and it's just a really great image. You got John Starks in there and Anthony Mason, and it was really cool. So I was very excited to work on it. And yeah, it was more than 6 months time, and I think I stopped counting after about 600 hours. So it was many hours past that. But once it was done, and I could kind of breathe a little bit and take a step back and finally look at them side by side, it was pretty rewarding.
Dude, it was so cool, man. Even seeing like the reels on Instagram, that you put out there, man. Like the part that was really nuts to me was watching was when you were doing the people in the crowd too, like everybody's faces and stuff, and like just being a hoops junkie, like we talked about. We're both big basketball fans, and that's I was literally just talking to a guy I work with today who's also a big NBA junkie, and like if I find out anybody's like a basketball fan, it's like it's the Spider-Man meme. You know what I mean? I'm gonna grab your ear and talk hoops with you, but I was like, dude, I was like, the Garden is on my bucket list. I was like, I know it's gonna be staying in New York, the tickets, like I know it's gonna be like multiple thousands of dollars trip, but I'm like, I gotta do it like as a basketball fan. And I think what's cool about that photo too is I've not seen that before. But at the same time, like it's kind of crazy that I haven't because to me, like you were saying, that photo really encapsulates that era. Like anybody who watched that 90s Knicks team and to have Pat slamming like that and really with the Garden too. I've never been there, but for some reason I always associate that roof. Like I feel like that kind of like spiral design, and that's part of the photo too. So yeah, man, it's like it's so New York. And that font too, it's almost like a it's very popular like these last several years. Like I've seen that font and I love it. But it's what I like about it is it's like new school and old school at the same time. Like it reminds you of something you would see like on like a Charles Dickens novel. but it's also something that it's like that'll be cool and like 100 years from now, dude, that painting is going to be sick. But anyway, there's not even a question in there other than that you kind of prefaced what I was going to ask you, which is how you found that photo. Because I was like, I don't know that I've seen that, but it feels like I have, just because that it really encapsulates that era, like him slamming like that.
Yeah, so that photo actually was the brought to me from by the collector. He showed that to me and said, "This is what I would like for a painting," and I jumped on it right away. I'm like, "Yes, let's start," because like you said, I've never seen that. That to me, that image is like right up there with like John Starks dunking over the Bulls. It's just such a iconic image. So yeah, I was really excited to get working on that piece.
Have you ever done, Adam? Have you ever done simultaneous like that before? Like side by side working on something? Was that a first?
No, I that's the first time I've worked on multiple pieces at the same time that are completely different, but I've never worked on an image that exactly the same at the same, at the same time. That's tough. It's a tough task, but um really enjoyed it. Hope I don't have to do it again anytime soon. But if it's requested, I'll do it. It was a lot of fun. It really was.
And it's part of, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's part of the permanent collection at the Thrive Capitol. And was it Joshua Kushner? Can we give him a shout out? That's who commissioned it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Josh Kushner, great guy. So I met him like 20 years ago, and then we reconnected like maybe a year and a half ago. And yeah, so many years later, and then he commissioned that piece. But yeah, I'm really proud of both of them. But to see that piece on the wall at his office was just like, it was really amazing.
When I saw the reels of that, dude, of you putting that together, I like you were saying, like I can't even fathom, like, when you have something that big, how did you figure out where in the photo to start? Like as you're piecing all of it together, you know what I mean? It's almost like a puzzle piece, like something that big. Like I know you've been doing this a long time, man, but how do you figure out where to start, especially when you're going simultaneously like that?
It's interesting that you said that. It really was a puzzle piece. Because of the size of the painting. We'll speak about the larger one first. Um, and I guess the constraints of my current studio, I actually so when I draw the painting, I use a projector to project the image, and then I'll draw it, and then I'll after that's done, I'll go back in and further draw some of the details. But I had to project it in pieces because it was so large. So I actually had to turn the painting sideways and project it 4 different times. So that was really the first step. Once I did that and I could turn it upright, then I would, further render it. But as far as painting, I generally start with the lightest first. So in this case, I started with his jersey first, which is the foreground. And I also typically start with the foreground, then I'll work on the background last. So, like I said, I started with his jersey, and then after that, I probably jumped around working on like John Stark's jersey and some of the other lights, and then I started going towards the darks, and then once all the people in the front were painted, then I jumped in the background and worked on Madison Square Garden, and then after that was done, then I jumped down and started doing the crowd. So that was kind of the idea of from where I started and where I went in that process.
And how about the New York or nowhere piece of that, the decision to put that on there? Because I really feel like that completed the piece.
Yeah, so that was actually part of the image because that photo that Josh gave me was an ad for New York or Nowhere, which is a brand. So that was an advertisement in a magazine that he saw and then wanted that. So actually, to your point, that was the first step because what I did was I used a stencil machine to cut out those letters. And then I placed it on there in the middle and then drew around that. And those stencils stayed on there until the entire painting was done. And then I think I posted one of the reels where I peeled off the letters, which was the absolute last step of the painting. So that's always fun when you peel off the letters and or the stencil and then completes the piece.
Yeah, that was sick, man. I wish I had a better word to use than that. I wish my vocabulary is sick, dude. But yeah, I again, man, like drawing was my first love as a kid, and I can't, the I have such an appreciation for it because um to be able to focus on it and again, like we talked about in the first conversation, to make a career out of it, to study it at Syracuse, and then get the opportunity to start working with the NBA. And at this point in your career, with all the work you've done and all the people you've worked with, like, to have it be like, and obviously there's still a lot of work left for you to do, man. But I just thought that that was so cool. And ironically, I was thinking about this too, man. And I was going to throw this at you because I don't even know if you thought about this, but correct me if I'm wrong. But this year, 2025, is 25 years since you were first discovered by a Knicks photographer at a Knicks game, right? It was 2000.
That's right. That's exactly right. And it's so funny because the first painting that I did with the NBA was the Patrick Ewing painting that you might have seen on my website. And here we are 25 years later, and I'm doing this, larger Patrick Ewing piece. And, growing up in New York, I was more of a Chicago Bulls fan. So, like, I always wanted to do paintings of Michael Jordan, but it keeps coming back to Patrick Ewing. So it's like, it's almost like a love-hate kind of relationship because, I'd much rather be doing paintings of Michael Jordan. But yeah, it was fun nonetheless. Yeah, but going back to the NBA, I mean, you know, it was so different than it is now because everything is digital. And I just remember going to New Jersey to the office and just blocking out the whole day because I knew I was going to be there for hours. And Carmen was such a nice, generous guy. He literally gave me full access to the archives. And I would just sit in there for hours and hours looking through slides. And I I didn't even I don't remember that Patrick Ewing photograph, but there were so many great classic images, and I pulled a bunch of them, and they let me develop those. So I have those in a file somewhere, all those great photos from the 80s and the 90s. But yeah, it was such a wonderful experience being still in college when I started doing that, and then of course once I graduated, I was kind of on my way, and yeah, nothing but great memories from that time.
And going back to Carmen, man, like getting your shot if my memory serves me right, he ended up going on to, was it Getty Images? But to
Yeah.
get that kind of access as a young dude, and you talked a little bit about the first time we talked, but I kind of wanted to expound upon it more because just the NBA nerd in me. So it's kind of a selfish inquiry, but I know you love talking about it too, but I'm just trying to picture, like you said, college, you getting that chance, like, if you can kind of paint the picture, no pun intended, for me and the listeners, of like what it's like to go into the photo archives, because I vividly remember like the early days of NBA.com, and you could go on there and get a lot of those images and search through them. And so, like, being a Michael Jordan fan like yourself, man, I would look at all these old Jordan pictures in the 80s, and like you see him playing like the Celtics and stuff. But can you help me and the listeners visualize like what that experience is like in terms of those archives of those photos? Like, what's the room like? What's the vibe like? Like, I'm picturing some like Indiana Jones, like, like archives type of thing.
Yeah, it was just a huge room where, you walk in and there's just like file cabinets for days. It keeps going and going and going. And each file cabinet was, I think it was alphabetical order, or maybe it was by player. That I don't remember, but I do remember always like sneaking over to the Michael Jordan files, and he had 100 drawers and everybody else had like two or three. And there were just some guys who were just more photogenic than others. So like Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, Kobe, like, you'd go in there and you'd pull out a sleeve of all these slides and you'd bring it over to like a light box, and with a little eye loop, you would look at them. And like every other photo was like an A photo. They're all great photos. And then you'd pull somebody else, and like one of every like 20 photos was like like a keeper. So, but yeah, I would just take a stack of these sleeves, put them down, and just go through each one and just pull whatever ones I liked, put them back, go grab another stack. And like I was there for hours and hours, and I did it multiple times. And Carmen was just so generous. He's like, yeah, just have at it. Go in there and, see what you like. And yeah, thank goodness for him because, once they shifted over to Getty Images, even when they first started, like I had access and I could go through them and pull whatever I wanted. Now you can't really do that. You kind of have to go in there and pull what you want and pay a fee, licensing fee for the photos. And, I'm sure you'd imagine that it's not cheap. It's, some photos are pretty expensive, especially if they're like more, one of the popular ones that you see, like Jordan Duncan from the free throw line. Like it's not so easy to license an image like that. Um, but yeah, I spent so many hours there. It's fortunately like you could do it on the computer in your home or on your phone now. But it was a fun experience to do that because not too many people had that kind of access. So I was really fortunate.
What was that first excuse me, that first meeting like with Carmen, man? Like were you nervous at all? Like I know you're an athlete still to this day, like staying in shape and everything and like growing up playing soccer, like, playing sports competitively. So I'm sure that helps like with your confidence. Like it's a different obviously it's a different medium. It's not like a field or a court or whatever, but like was there any part of you that's like, holy crap, I'm talking to like the guy for NBA photos? Like, obviously he's been so cool and really helped start this off for you. But what was that first meeting like with him, man?
Well, I don't remember too much of it, but I definitely remember being nervous. But it was, coming from Long Island, driving to New Jersey, I had a nice long car ride sitting in traffic to kind of think about it. So like by the time I got there, I was really anxious to get there and sit down with him. But I just remember him being really kind and nice and kind of just saying, "Listen, I love what you're doing. Just get in there and find some photos you like and we'll give you access and yeah, it was nice. I mean, just like I said, only great memories. I don't remember the conversation too much. I just remember sitting in his office. But I also remember like walking through the halls and they had all these oversized photos, obviously of all different players and like there's that really famous image of like Dennis Rodman stretched out, trying to grab the ball that's going out of bounds. I remember that image like blown up on the wall and just obviously some Michael Jordan images and just it just brought a smile to my face walking in there because it's exactly where I wanted to be and like and I remember just feeling very grateful because I know like at the time I was still 20 years old and just walking in there it's like like I said not too many people get that so I was really grateful for that opportunity and like I said I loved every second of it.
So fast forward, and thanks again, Adam. I really appreciate the time, and I know you got stories for days, and I'm not gonna chew your ear off, but fast forward, and we touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to expound upon it a little bit more in this one. Um, you were there for the 2009 Hall of Fame induction, which any Jordan fan knows that was the famous Hall of Fame speech. It was classic Jordan, called out everybody who doubted him, but also gave praise to all the people that were there with him. And that class, it was Jordan, it was Jerry Sloan, it was John Stockton. Um, gosh, who else in there? David Robinson, right? C. Vivian Stringer. Um, can you talk a little bit about that experience? Because I know you got to like meet him and everything there, but what was it like, man? Just like again, I'm picturing like I'm picturing me now, like at almost 37, like in the company of greatness like that. But to be at the Hall of Fame for the induction ceremony, and that is like a very classic class. Like, can you talk to me and the people about like what that weekend was like and memories that stick out?
It was as incredible as you would imagine. I mean, I was there when at the Hall of Fame when they hand out the jersey the jackets and they put it on them for the first time and then there was there were multiple nights so there were events throughout the evening and then going to the ceremony where he gave that infamous speech just walking in and seeing all of the players like Scottie Pippen and I remember we started at the Hall of Fame and then we ended up at another venue and I got on the bus and I was sitting right behind BJ Armstrong and just like seeing all these Bulls that you watch on TV and it was absolutely incredible. And then to listen to Jordan's speech, it was just it was the greatest thing ever. And then the night where we presented my painting to the inductees, it was great because it was like 500 people at this sit down dinner, and it was just all these listening to all the stories and meeting all the people there at the tables, and then presenting and unveiling the artwork, which was incredible. And then after, I went over to Jordan and shook his hand and congratulated him. So it was just like the culmination of, I put in probably 3 months of work into that painting. So just to be able to do that, finish it, and then be able to unveil it there and have them see it, and then meeting all of them was really one of my fondest memories probably in my career, because as we've been talking about, Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time and my favorite, and being able to not only present the artwork but actually be there in such an incredible occasion was just, yeah, I was in heaven.
I can't even imagine, man. Like I would be geeked out to be at like any Hall of Fame class just to be like just to even be at the Hall of Fame in general. So yeah, I can't even imagine being there because I remember watching that speech. Like that was 2009. I was in between my junior and senior year at the University of Toledo, and I vividly like. I mean, it was very obviously it's MJ, so it was going to be talked about anyway. But I just remember after like everybody's talking about. Did you hear the MJ speech? Um, and I still remember the cameras even cutting towards the end where as he's wrapping his speech up, and Carmelo was there, if my memory serves me right, because I kind of remember the camera cutting to him, and he was talking about how, like, hey, I'm retired, but and then he looked at everybody, he's like, oh, don't laugh, because I think he said, what was it like fears limitations like fears they're only just an illusion, something like that, and it was so MJ, man. And I remember Mello kind of looking at him like what he was talking about, because at that time he was probably pushing 50, something like that. I think he was born in 63. I'm trying to do the math in my head. So he retired in 2003. He was like, yeah, 40. So yeah, man, that was an iconic memory for me watching that speech, man.
Yeah, I actually watched it back recently. It was on NBA TV a few months ago. I'm sure it's on all the time, but I watched that speech and it reminded me of that. And just being there in the room and listening to like the energy during that speech and after, it was, yeah, you're in awe. You're just like listening and hanging on every word, and just yeah, it was so much fun.
So some other NBA ones I want to geek out with you about. Thanks again so much, Adam, for taking the time, dude. It's always great talking with you, man. Um, I watched it on your YouTube channel, and I had it written down the first time, but again, I didn't want to chew your ear off, so I didn't. We didn't get to it, but he's probably one of the best NBA personalities, like in terms of like just again, I never met him. He seems like a really good dude, but you did a painting of John Sally and the best damn sports show period. That was the show. Like when I was in junior high, early high school, kind of before everything that we have now, like that show was like the sports show on TV, and you were on there and presented John Sally with the painting you did of him. Can you talk about that experience and how that came to be?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was invited on the show by one of the producers, and basically they said, "We'd love it if you came on and presented a portrait to John Sally." The only catch was that we'd have to give it to him. And I said, sure, no problem. It's still early on in my career. And when you have an opportunity to be on TV and meet someone like John Sally, who's, kind of like Shaq, larger than life personality, obviously a 7-footer, I jumped at it. So, yeah, it was really cool being on the set and doing that and being live. Like it was, I don't, it wasn't live in the sense that it was on TV at that time, but there was a studio audience. It was one take, right? And you just have to, there was really, there wasn't much prep. I remember sitting in the back and they were putting a little makeup on, a little powder or whatever it was. And they were talking a little bit about kind of running through what may happen. And again, it wasn't too much, but I remember that, and just, they introduced me and I just walked out there and we kind of ad-libbed, and it was, it's like, it goes by so fast. It was probably 2, 3 minutes long, and before you know it, it's over. But he was great. I got to present it on there, and then afterwards, I remember talking to him backstage, and he's like, I'm definitely keeping this and hanging this in my home. And a few years later, I remember he posted it on social media, and I chatted with him a bit, and he said he still has it, which was really cool. Um, the only thing about that show is, and it's kind of, it's like life. Not everything works out perfect. As great as it was to be on the show, nobody really ever saw it because it ended up airing like 2 a.m. in the morning. It got pushed some reason, and nobody saw the show. So like obviously I put on YouTube, it probably has a few hundred views or whatnot, maybe 1,000. But again, it was like one of those things. I'm so excited, I'm telling everybody about it, and then nobody ever saw it on, on TV. So it's kind of just like it's just one of those things where not everything works out perfectly, and it's a great story and great memories, but sometimes don't always work out the way you planned it. But it was a really cool experience, and hopefully I'll have some more of those.
Yeah, and that was one thing I wanted to ask you too, because what was cool watching that was like I said, I grew up watching that show. I was in junior high in the early 2000s, and I loved it. I loved the show that I feel like they were kind of on like they weren't like the first show to do it because obviously like the NFL shows on like NFL on Fox and stuff, and the personalities Howie Long and Terry Bradshaw, like they would mix in the the comedic
Yep.
kind of side of it too. But I felt like the rapport that those guys had on the Best Damn Sports Show period was really awesome. That's what made it fun to watch. But what was cool watching it was like when you unveil it to him and you show him, and like it's almost like you can see in his eye, like it's taken him back to like his playing days, and again, like the photorealism aspect of it. And I'm thinking, man, like how much of it for you, for what you do, Adam, obviously beyond like having the love of art and the big part of your life it is, how cool is it for you, almost like when you give somebody a gift, part of the cool thing about it is seeing them appreciate like how thoughtful what you did was, right? Like you've done these for Shaq, MJ, like there's so many. Mello, you were there when the 4040 Club opened. Like how cool is it for you to see people, especially at that level, show that appreciation? Because I think especially athletes, like the work that they put in, and as an athlete yourself, like the work you put in to get where you are and the dedication that it takes to be an NBA player, an NFL player, and to be great, or to be the greatest MJ, right? Like how special is that moment for you when you actually like get to give your art to somebody and see them like just take it all in?
Yeah, it's everything. I mean, in that circumstance, he had no idea. It was a surprise. So he didn't know that there was that segment. He didn't know anything about the painting. So when he saw it, you really saw his genuine reaction. But yeah, that's everything. I mean, that's the payoff. All those hours spent in the studio working on every little detail. Think to myself, I got to get this right because I want them to love it. I hope they appreciate it when they see it. So finally, when you get to unveil it and you get to see people's reaction and yeah, it's really it's the payoff. It's what it makes it all worth it in the end because that's really what you do it for is for the collector or just an audience to whether they see it in an art gallery or online or in person on TV show. It's really it makes it all worth it in the end when you get that kind of reaction for sure.
And another one I had to ask you about that I wrote down, um, because I do a lot of music, have a lot of musical artists on the show, Hip Hop Immortals. I wanted to hear the story behind that one, man. Especially again, New York. I mean, so much hip hop history. What was the Hip Hop Immortals project?
So I got connected to a guy who created this book called Hip Hop Immortals, and they took all these incredible photographs of all these incredible hip hop artists over the years. And at that time, we're going back to 2002. So you're talking only like, 20 to 30 years of hip hop. Um, so I got connected to the guy who created that book, and he gave me all these incredible photos that were in the book and said, let's recreate it as a painting. So I got to hand select all the images that I wanted, create it in Photoshop, and I think I had 20 rappers on there. So it was, yeah, that was another project that probably took about 3 months, just like working on it every day. And because it's, portraits, there's so much detail in there. Um, but I was really happy with that piece in the end because I love black and white. There's just something about black and white, like just the nostalgia of it. You're looking at like old photos of like Babe Ruth, and it's just a different time and era. And sometimes you can capture that in a current image just by going black and white. So I really love doing that. And so I was really proud of that piece. I'm really happy with that in the end. And then we did an event in New York City, and Dougie Fresh was there, and the author of the book, Bones Malone, was there, and that was another really cool experience. And again, it's going back to the beginning of my career. It was 2002, I believe. So I'm still, still fresh working on the NBA stuff and jumping into hip hop, and it was really amazing.
Is it hard to keep your, I mean, you're like pretty calm, cool, collected guy, like when we talk, but I'm like, is there any part of you that's like you have that inner monologue, you're like, I can't believe I'm standing next to like I'm shaking Michael Jordan's hand. I'm chilling, like I'm giving Melo this art I did of him at the All-Star game in 2005. Like, do you have to kind of like go, okay, man, just like be cool?
Yeah, like you said, I'm generally pretty like even keeled. I don't get too excited or too nervous. I mean, the thing like it depends on the circumstance. I mean, with MJ, like I didn't know when or if I was gonna meet him because there's so much going on this weekend. So and I was doing my own thing. So like I didn't put too much thought into it. And then like for example, like with Shaq, like it was like a last minute thing that kind of came together, and I had to get to the venue and set up and then wait for him. And then he came, things kind of just move fast. And you don't really have time to kind of really, absorb what's going on until maybe after. And then, hopefully you have good video or photos. You can kind of like look back and see it. But trying to think like there are very few times just because, you go to a party, you don't know who you're going to meet. All of a sudden, things happen so quick. There's really no build up generally. So, there's very few people that I would get nervous to meet or maybe wouldn't want to like misspeak because like you only have those opportunities sometimes once in a lifetime. Um, but generally speaking, yeah, yeah, there haven't been too many times where I was like at a loss for words. Um, but there's also very few times where, afterwards thinking back, you're disappointed because like generally they live up to the hype of just being like really cool, down to earth. Generally speaking, I'm pretty cool about it. Like after meeting so many people, you kind of lose that a little bit because like you're not like, a young kid just like looking at these people like, oh my God, look who it is, look who it is. But I think one of the reasons is because like earlier in my career, like for example, I was able to work with Ray Lewis when I was um, again just starting out. Back in 2002 was the first year, and one of the cool things about that is every year he would have a charity event, and he would invite all of these athletes and entertainers to. He would have like a VIP dinner, and then like the next day he'd have a bowling event, and all these people would come down and he would also have a huge birthday party at his house because his birthday was always around the time where he would have his charity event. And I was very fortunate to be invited to all these parties. So you go into his house and everything's kind of just, there's a lot of people there, but you're hanging out with guys like Spike Lee and Deion Sanders, and everyone's kind of just like hanging out together, talking, mingling. And, you don't feel like, oh my God, look who it is. You kind of just, they're right next to you and you get to talk for a little bit and you're on to the next person. And, so I think just over time and just being able to be in those experiences and you kind of get used to it in a sense where you don't feel like overwhelmed or like oh my gosh like this I don't you don't get too nervous about it. So um yeah like I said, I don't think there's too many people where I'd be like lost for words, but there's definitely a list of people I want to meet and hopefully I will, but I don't think I'd be nervous about it.
Well, to put a button on this, man, and thanks again so much, Adam, for taking the time, dude. I really appreciate it. I know you got a ton of stories, and but you got a family too, and you got a life. And but the first time we talked, I was like, I got to get this dude back on here for a part two to kind of go in more in depth with some of these stories. Just being a huge basketball fan, excuse me, myself, and even as I was taking notes to get ready for this, it was kind of just like a coincidence. I'm like, damn, it's been almost like a year to the day since we last caught up. It's been 25 years since you got discovered by that Knicks photographer. And I appreciate you coming back down or coming back on and breaking down some more of these stories in depth, man. anything that you're working on currently, as far as this year, obviously we talked about the New York or Nowhere piece with Patrick Ewing. Again, shout out to Joshua Kushner. But are there any projects in the works that you're excited about that you can tease, or stuff that you can talk about?
Yeah, right now I'm finishing up a piece of Carmelo Anthony, which hopefully I'll be unveiling soon. Really excited about that. And after that, I got about 5 sneaker paintings I got to work on. And then I got a couple other projects in the works. I'm not really ready to unveil it yet. Hopefully, I can start speaking about that soon, but really looking forward to those. But yeah, I got a bunch of projects lined up and really excited about all of them.
Well, thanks again so much for taking the time, man. Again, with the theme of the show being perseverance and moving forward, like I think your work and the things that you're doing, man, it's like a great example of, like, you know, you can make it happen, like in terms of taking something that you love and making it a career. And you got to put the work in. I mean, that painting that we were talking about at the beginning of this podcast, New York or Nowhere. I mean, that's over 6 months. Um, that it takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of grind, and but I love your story, man. It's just you're a down to earth cat. Again, shout out to Ken Lazaro for linking us up last year. It's always a pleasure talking with you, and I love sharing stories like this because not many people get to have these life experiences. And again, not that it's a knock to do like a more of a 9 to 5 life or have more of like a traditional career, but I think that there's a lot of people that whether it's self-doubt or just the environment that they grow up in, that sometimes people put aside the things that they love, whether it's in childhood or just things that they're drawn to because they don't think that it's practical. And I think guys like you show that, hey, you can, whether it's photography, whether it's painting, whether it's drawing, whether it's sculpting, like, you know, what would our world be without art, man? So I really appreciate you coming back on, and we didn't even talk about shoes on this one, but again, I want to be respectful, but I think your story is really cool, man. So for what it's worth, from a dude from the Midwest, talking to a dude from the East Coast, and we have that shared love of basketball and sneakers and art, man. Like, you should be really proud of what you're doing, brother. And you're a down to earth guy on top of it. So kudos, man. And I always appreciate the time.
Yeah, man, thanks. I appreciate that. I mean, I really enjoy our conversations. One of the things I love about podcasts is that, it's long form conversations. You can just, there's no limit on how long and, all the stories. And like you said, there's so many stories to go on. We might have to do a part 3 at some point, but I really enjoyed talking with you, and this is a lot of fun.
All righty, dighty. There you have it. That was my conversation with artist Adam Port. Make sure you go follow him on Instagram at Art of Adam Port. His website is adamport.com. The links to all of his stuff will be in the podcast description for this episode. So y'all know what to do. Scroll down to the bottom of that podcast description, hit those links, and go follow and support Adam. You will not be disappointed if you are a fan of art, if you're a fan of photorealism. This guy is a master at his craft. If you love shoes, if you love basketball, if you love sports, as you heard in that conversation, music, this dude's done it all, man. So once again, go to his website, adamport.com. There you can get information as far as commission works, available works, prints of previous works that he's done. Check out his portfolio. It's also got a link to his other socials. But his Instagram and his website will be in the podcast description. Once again, at Art of Adam Port on Instagram, adamport.com is the website. I just want to say directly to Adam, thank you so much, man, for coming back on the podcast for a part 2. Being that it was 25 years since you were first discovered, and I saw all those awesome reels you were posting of that New York or Nowhere Patrick Ewing piece, I was like, I got to get this dude back on, especially with all the stories that you have. And we'll get a part 3 eventually as well, man, because I know there's only so many stories, there's only so much time. And I really appreciate you, man, with your busy schedule, taking the time away from your family and away from your work to speak with this goofball about Jordan and shoes and sports in New York and the Bulls and the previous works that you've done. And it was cool to talk more about works like with John Sally on this one, dig deeper into the Hall of Fame experience back in '09. So I really appreciate it, man. You're a great guy and a great artist, and that's why I love doing this show, man. This is something that I really enjoy doing, as you and the listeners know. And it's great that Ken Lazaro, shout out Ken, linked us up, and you've been kind enough to come on twice now, and we'll get the trifecta eventually. But it was really cool for you to stop back by with the anniversary of your discovery at Madison Square Garden, and with all the continued awesome work that you're doing. So I really appreciate it, my guy. Once again, everybody, at Art of Adam Port on Instagram, adamport.com. The links are in the podcast description for this episode. And if you enjoyed what you heard, everybody listening to this, if Adam brought you here and this is the first time you hopped aboard the pirate ship, welcome aboard. If you liked it, please like, share, and subscribe. Interact with the content on social media when we post it. Please take the time on whatever streaming service you're listening to the show right now to leave a rating and a review. That helps the episode rank higher in the algorithms for podcasting, and it gets this show out to more people. And that's ultimately what I want, man. I want to put more people on to dope artists like Adam and what they're doing, and hopefully inspire people to chase their dreams and bust their butt and have awesome life experiences the way Adam has done, man. That's what the show is all about: perseverance, moving forward, marching forth. And I'm just really grateful for all the people that I've been able to connect with. And speaking of great people that I've been able to connect with, to close out the episode this week, I didn't share it in the beginning because I didn't want it to take away from Adam and the awesome part two that we just did. And I appreciate everybody who's listening and still listening. But this week's episode is going to be dedicated to my two mentors and late friends in sports broadcasting and in podcasting, Mick Gonzalez and Mike Jameson, aka JMO. Those two guys gave me my shot at doing this stuff when nobody knew my name. And sadly, they both passed right about a month apart. Over the past month, Mick died in late February, and Mike just passed away this past Thursday. Both died from, sadly, various forms of cancer and long-time health battles that they were having. They're both tough guys, and man, they fought like brothers, even though they weren't. But they loved each other like brothers too. They were the co-founders of Toledo Sports Network, and I am one of many that these guys helped give a start to, and they would give you the shirt off their backs, literally. I first met them back in the late summer, early fall of 2010 as a very gangly, uh, lean, green, nervous, anxious cat out of the University of Toledo. I had just graduated with my degree in communication with a focus in journalism. And my goal was to be a sports writer, and I wanted to just toil in obscurity. I didn't, I've struggled with anxiety and self doubt and self confidence, as you guys have heard throughout the show, if you're longtime listeners. And it's gotten better. I have my good days and my bad days, and I'm certainly a lot more comfortable in my skin now at the age of 37 than I was at 22. But I initially was terrified of being in front of a camera or behind a microphone. I was like, I'm going to get sick. I'm going to have a panic attack. Somebody's going to find the video, put it on YouTube, and my career is over. I just would immediately jump to the worst thing. And so I initially balked at joining them for Toledo Sports Network. Mick and I first met in the cafeteria at Toledo Hospital, where we both worked at the time. And shout out to Tom Bedell, who also worked at Toledo Hospital. He knew my dad. It's like 6 degrees of separation where I'm from, y'all. He worked at Toledo Hospital. So Tom knew my dad, and he knew the work that I was doing with the student newspaper, the Independent Collegian at that time at the University of Toledo. Tom did he was like the PA announcer for another high school in town, and he didn't want to do TV stuff. And he knew Mike and Mick were expanding and looking to expand Toledo Sports Network. So he referenced me to Mick. And like I said, initially I balked at the opportunity, man, because I was just terrified of being in front of a camera behind a mic. And after doing some local high school games in print form in the area, I was like, you know what? Let me give this a shot. Let me give it a shot. And so I did. And I'll never forget my very first game was at Otsego High School in Tontogany, Ohio. between the Knights and the Anthony Wayne Generals, and I was nervous. It was my first game ever with those guys, but they couldn't have been more supportive. And right before the end of the first half, I was doing color commentary. Mick was doing play by play. Unfortunately, I don't think this game exists on Mike's YouTube channel anymore, Mike Jameson's YouTube channel for Toledo Sports Network, because I think it was on an old hard drive, and we're talking 2010, almost 15 years ago now this fall that game took place. I digress. But I remember I still had the nerves going. I was getting my sea legs underneath me. I'd never done color commentary before, never been behind a mic before, and those guys called me Bomber. That was their affectionate nickname for me, was Bomber. And I remember Mick going, Bomber, what would you do here? The Knights are trailing here to go into the half. But they got a chance to potentially make something happen, get some more points on the board. What would you do right here if you were Otsego? And Otsego had twin brothers on the team. Their last name was Freemantle. And the one kid, the one brother, was really good in space. Like he was a real shifty kind of running back. Kind of like a running back where you would see they'd throw him the ball a lot. Like an Alvin Kamara. I mean, obviously he was an Alvin Kamara, but that type of a running back, right? To paint the picture. And I said, well, Mick, I think right here they still got some time left on the clock as we near the end of the half, and I think I'd try to get into the flats to Fremantle and see if he can make something happen in space. And maybe get some points on the board or get in scoring position before the end of the half, because they were around like midfield. And sure enough, and again, I'm not saying to toot my own horn, but sure enough, they threw it to Fremantle on the left side. He caught it at the hashes, turned upfield, made a couple of guys miss, and Mick's excitement as that kid continued to approach the end zone. His voice continued to go up in excitement. I will never forget it as he was counting it down. The 20, the 10, touchdown, Fremantle, the Otsego Knights. And I literally called that play. I said, I think they should get it to this kid in space. And again, I'm not saying to toot my own horn. It's one of the few like Tony Romo-esque, you know, Greg Olson moments that I've had in years of broadcasting. But I bring that up because at that moment, my nerves really, really lifted. I had moments after that where I messed up like everybody does, behind the mic or on camera. You forget somebody's name, or, me being the talker that I am, trying to squeeze 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag when I got a whole game to get out all my stats and, thoughts and whatnot. And I will never forget that moment in the press box with Mick when that happened, and just the excitement in his voice. And I felt lifted in that moment. And then at halftime, going down the steps to where Mike had the truck, because we always had the production truck was like right behind the press box at the bottom of the stadium, so you could run all the wires and stuff up. And I think it was Mike Downey was one of the cameramen, maybe Dave Cheatham, rest in peace. He's no longer with us either. And Mike came out of the truck and he was like, dude, you got it. Whatever it is, you got it. And him and Mick could not have been more encouraging. And that was the beginning of a 5-year journey with those guys at Toledo Sports Network. And they truly changed my life. I fancy myself an introverted extrovert. I feel like I can talk to anybody. But like I said, at that time, coming out of college, I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in myself, certainly not to do sports broadcasting and be in front of a camera. And those guys changed my life. I truly would not be here doing what I'm doing today. I wouldn't have the kind of self-confidence that I have today in myself, and have the interview style that I have, if not for not only the reps that I got with those guys, but more importantly, them opening the door for me and giving me a chance, sight unseen, when nobody knew my name. And the laughs that I shared with those guys, the things that I learned from them. We did countless radio shows and games together over the years. And I moved to Nashville, like I said, in 2015. So I've been down here 10 years, but stayed in touch with those guys after I moved. And obviously when people aren't here anymore, you wish you'd have stayed in touch more. Every time I go back home, it's kind of a rat race, because I've got family, I've got friends. I've got people that live in various parts of either Northwest Ohio or Southeast Michigan. I have a few siblings who don't live there anymore, and I've got, 2 nephews now and a niece. So I've got friends who have kids and careers and stuff. So it's always kind of even though I love going home, it's hard to see everybody, and so that's one thing that I wish I would have got a chance to see them more after I moved. But we always stayed in touch. And I always made sure to tell those guys thank you from the bottom of my heart for what they did, because I really love them like older brothers, and it was just devastating but in a weird way, kind of poetic, that being the friends and brothers from other lovers that they were, that they ended up passing a little over a month apart. And so it's been a heavy few days, thinking about both of them. And, it's, people are here and then they're gone, so if there's anything that I can leave y'all with, it's, cherish every moment you get with the people that you love, because you never know when it's going to be the last time. And never be short on your thank yous to the people who helped get you to where you are. I first started recording this podcast in Mike's home studio, man, in Rossford, Ohio. And I'll never forget those guys. They will forever be part of what I'm doing. They'll forever be in my heart, in my soul, and in my bones, man. And so let this be your message to end this show, not only to chase your dreams like Adam, but text, call, hug, and say, I love you to the people at the end of this show, man, that have helped get you to where you are. Because our time here is really short, and we need to give people their flowers while they are alive. And I am a better man, and a better human for having known Mike Jameson and Mick Gonzalez. So, guys, wherever you're listening from, I love you. I miss you. And you brought a lot of laughter and a lot of joy up to heaven, even though the rest of us here are going to miss you. So, on that note, I'm going to wrap it up by saying what I say at the end of every podcast: keep the faith and be kind to one another and be kind to yourselves. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.